inside the off stump. Oh, he's caught it! I don't believe it! Tom Kohler-Cadmore has caught the most magnificent catch. That short third man is the end of Daniel Sams, and Somerset have won the Vitality Blast 2023. They bowled Essex out for 131.
Hello there, you're listening to Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. This is the Somerset Cricket Podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd. Joining me this evening, I've got Head of Digital and wearer of many hats at Somerset County Cricket Club, Ben Warren. Ben, how are you going?
I'm very well, thanks, Shep. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, what a great few days we've had.
It's been brilliant. I should just say, if you were expecting to hear Gibbo, Gibbo was had a well-earned week off, but he's on his way. He was on his way to Portugal today, and I think if anybody deserved a break after watching some of Somerset's batting collapses on and off the road, it was Gibbo. But he messaged me earlier. Apparently, there's a few drunks on his flight from Bristol Airport, so that was delayed. So he may be chipping in a few minutes or so, but we remain confident of that. And I just want to hear the anecdote about what's going on his Ryanair flight more than I want to talk about Somerset. But we shall do that indeed. Somerset recorded their first, or Somerset men, we should say, recorded their first county championship win of the season, beating Essex by 3 wickets. Craig Overton smashed Simon Harmer, not quite into the tone, but certainly into the James Hilder stand for 6. Ben, should we sort of start at the end and work back? Because I had family stuff to do on Monday, and I was like thinking, right, do I go and watch Somerset and get divorced, or do I, do my family duties? But I was able to sort of watch it. And as far as Somerset wins go, that Monday morning was pretty plain sailing. I think Rue and Overton played it absolutely to perfection.
Yeah, it was a strange sort of morning in a way, because I think everybody thought that Somerset had got themselves in with a sniff, but it's Somerset and it's Essex. There's always drama, and I think everybody was sort of ready for this to be a 9 down, 10 to win sort of climax, really. But it just and this is massive credit to James Rue and Craig Overton. They never let Essex get a sniff that morning, right up until Rui went for that shot where the game was pretty much done at that point. But the way that they never opened the door for Essex was very impressive, and it just almost felt like it was, I think all Somerset fans were thinking, well, something's gonna happen here in a minute.
We were just waiting for something to happen. I mean, it reminded me of the Warwickshire run chase last year, that once we kind of broke the back of it, it was almost like we just coasted to victory. I mean, take nothing away from the guys. They played absolutely brilliantly, especially considering we were, 78 for 5 at one stage before Gregory and Rue came together. Just very impressed with the run in between the wickets. I thought they were so risk averse with that. They just knew the quick singles and what their capacity was for taking those. Didn't do anything silly, no real big shots, put the bad ball away. And it was kind of like, why haven't you been doing this for the last 4 games to the other the other guys a bit higher up the order? I mean, let's start with James Rue. I mean, he scored 150 odd in the first game against Worcester, and then that 100 today was, I mean, he said it was his best innings. We're fortunate that he's, his entire career is kind of encapsulated within the lifespan of Always Look on the Bright Side of Life as well. So we have seen him kind of from ball one, and I don't think he's played a better innings, certainly a more mature innings. The only comparable one, I think, under pressure would be that one up at Edgbaston in the T20 last year. That's a slightly different format, but still, coming in when the writing is really on the wall and it's up to you to deliver, and he delivered.
He did, and it was noticeable in his post-match interview. He mentioned that he was really desperate to get 100 chasing, and I think that those are the knocks that really elevate you into to new stratospheres. Really, when you not just for your future credentials as an potential international player, but just I think your status within the changing room. If you sort of help get your side home in a really important game, then that'll do him wonders. I mean, I think the context of that is worth highlighting as well, in terms of this game was worth more to Somerset than the points that they accrued come the end of it. We all were looking down this as how the season was going to play out one way or the other, depending on that result. Somerset have still got a lot of work to do to get themselves back up to where they want to be in the table, but they've given themselves a chance at doing it. It's given them a foothold in the season, and I think that gives his innings even more credit. The fact that it was almost sort of not a season on the line sort of job, but it was a hugely significant innings in the context of Somerset summer. And I think that the way that he played, he scored quite fluently throughout without taking any risks. And I would describe James Rue, he when he's playing well, he's just a run getter. I know that's not, he just gets, runs don't look difficult to acquire. He's a bit like Joe Root. I don't want to make any sort of.
He's one of those sort of accumulators. Is you look down, you check your few text messages, reply to an email, all of a sudden he's on 35. You think, where the hell did that come from? Because I've not seen him hit a cricket ball.
Yeah, and it sort of reminds me a little bit of Joe Root in that sort of mold, that he's very, very good at just knocking it into the leg side, getting one, or off his pads, getting two out to the deep. Doesn't really have to play any majorly attractive shots to get himself in and get himself to 30. And I think that was very apparent during that 100, is that he just accumulated runs very, very steadily throughout. And I think going back to that morning yesterday of, the ball was 68 overs old when the play started yesterday, and I think everybody was sort of talking about the new ball being one of the key factors. And I think that the way that they played it put the pressure back onto Essex. But what was very, very crucial, I think, was that they didn't expose a new batter to that new ball. I think it would have been easy for them to go, right, we need 105 to win. There's 12 overs to the new ball. Let's try and break the back of that. But they were confident in their own ability.
What did they get? It was about 45, 50, wasn't it? So they weren't going at a snail's pace.
It wasn't at a snail's pace, but I think it was the maturity to back themselves. They knew that they needed established players there against the new ball.
I'm just going to quickly interrupt because Gibbo has arrived. Hello, Gibbo. We have briefed the list. Well, we have briefed the cider lifers on your sort of on the superficial details of the day. Do you want to tell us what happened on your Ryanair flight from Bristol to Faro today?
Well, just as we were at the end of the runway with the engines just firing up, when some drunken so-and-so decided he wanted either to be sick or to have a slash, and stood up and wouldn't sit down, and they aborted the flight. We had to go back, and 2 hours later we eventually took off after he had been handed over to the police. So anyway, I suspect he was more likely to be an Essex supporter than a Somerset.
I was going to say, well, I was kind of hoping it was. I thought it's either Don Topley drowning his sorrows, or it's the Somerset players off on a jolly to celebrate their victory over Essex.
Let's be fair to Don Topley, though. He posted a very, very. He did. He said some good words yesterday. Very magnanimous. Yeah. Not a word I suspect he uses very often. But
what did he say?
Magnanimous in defeat.
4 days of hard cricket, and we certainly got that. We were just talking about James Rue and his powers of accumulation. Gibbo, do you want to quickly give us your thoughts on that before we carry on?
Well, I was glad to see him back to form, because he hasn't actually played very well in the last few weeks. He played beautifully down at Hove when he got that 80 not out, and then he just seemed rather to lose it. But he was back to his absolute best, I thought. He's got the right balance now.
between very solid defence and playing his attacking shots. And he didn't go overboard with the attacking shots, but equally he didn't go into his shell either. And it was a very well judged innings. I think Lewis Gregory deserves a lot of credit for that James Rew innings, particularly at the start. James said that it was Lewis coming in and starting to play some shots and putting some pressure back on the bowlers that gave him a bit of confidence, a bit of belief that this game wasn't lost, and it was possible to score runs against that attack on that surface. But no, I thought it was a superb innings. There was hardly any false shots. He played and missed a couple of times. There was an inside edge that went over the leg stump, but other than that, no, it was he was back. Well, I was going to say he was back to his best. He himself said that's the best he's ever played, and I think that's true as well.
Yeah, definitely under the pressure. What were we talking about? And then, Ben, we were just talking about that little 12-over period they needed to negotiate on Monday morning before the new ball. I think 12 overs is that's almost a nice little period. It's not long enough to be like, oh, right, we got 20 overs for the new ball, and then they probably would have maybe had to get the game done and dusted then. And it wasn't like 2 or 3 overs when you're not really feeling in. So I thought they played it to perfection, and everything just kind of fell Somerset's way. Not without a great deal of hard work on the part of the players, of course, but.
And I think the last nail in Essex coffin is that new ball didn't really do anything when they did take it. That was it was put a little bit of extra than they have on the old ball. But if you sort of look at the new ball sort of impact throughout the game, that ball didn't swing, and that was probably didn't have the nip, and that was partly due to the pitch. And I'm sure we'll go on and talk about the pitch in a bit, but. I think that as soon as Essex realised that that new ball, and they had the 2 set batters to bowl out with it, it all became rather straightforward from Somerset's perspective.
Essex didn't bowl very well on the last day, I didn't think. Sam Cook was a long way short of his best. Jamie Porter didn't look at the races really through the entire game. He wasn't the threat that he has been in the past. And Rajita is not as good an overseas as our Miguel Pretorius.
What is he? I thought he was going to say he's not as good an overseas as Don Topley said he was, but
well, I don't think he's much help at all. I mean, he bowled both sides of the wicket. He's sort of 75 miles an hour. He does a bit, but not much. And batsmen on that pitch had plenty of time to adjust to whatever he was producing.
He just bowled long ops all Monday morning from pretty much what I saw. He was all short and wide, and they were either leaving it or just bunting it out to the guy on the fence for one.
Yeah, it wasn't. He really wasn't very good. And I don't think Harmer is quite the force he was either. There was still plenty in that pitch. For the spinner. I think Jack Leach would have bowled better than Simon Harmer on that last morning.
I think Harmer. I mean, that ball that got Tom Abel out was
fantastic.
It was fantastic, and I think that at that moment, you sort of feared the worst. Really, the thing that if he was going to bowl that line and late consistently, that there was going to be enough in that pitch to see Harmer with a 5, 6, 7 footer and an Essex win. And I think probably in years gone by, he probably would have ended up with 5, 6, 7. And, I think there was a few times he didn't have the best of luck, but I thought Somerset played him pretty well, and particularly James Rew being a left-hander. It's never easy, is it, against the off spinner on a fourth day? So yeah, I think that. I think the Essex attack it does lack a bit of pace. Probably would be fair to say. I think Cook and Porter are incredible bowlers, but I think that actually you needed a bit of pace on that to sort of complement the spin. If you could have sort of 85 plus mile an hour from one end and Harmer from the other, I think it probably might have been a different story.
I think the other factor was Nigel Long, who was in a not out frame of mind. I mean, not just for the Somerset innings, but the the Essex second innings as well, when he gave two pretty plumb ones against Jack Leach not out, and there were two again that Harmer must have felt a little bit aggrieved about, that were given not out. But fair to Nigel Long, he was consistent, and I thought the umpiring was pretty good throughout. I thought Ben Debenham was pretty consistent at the other end as well.
The other element of that successful run chase was the sheer bloody mindedness of Craig Overton to see it through to the end. And we do know that when an Overton gets something between his teeth, be it Craig, Jamie, or even Mark to a degree, they don't tend to let it go. And boy, that was absolutely just I think Craigo said itself, it was probably the best innings he's ever played as well. What kind of got it for me was, do we have to credit our Twitter troll mate for getting Craigo fired up to a sufficient degree where he's got something to prove, Johnny Bairstow style, or do we discredit that stupid theory and just talk about what a player Craigo is?
He's done it before. I bumped into Mark, his father, on the way out on Sunday evening. And had a chat with him, and we both of us reminded ourselves of that innings at the Oval last year. When he batted virtually through the entire day and almost, would have made the game safe if it hadn't been a combination of Miguel Pretorius and Joe Bashir. But that to me demonstrated that he can play that way if he wants to. He's got good enough technique, and as you say, he's got a great temperament. He's a fighter, and he knew what he had to do, and I thought he did it brilliantly. But it didn't surprise me. That's how I expected him to bat, and of course, finishing it the grand style was just tremendous.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's definitely as matured as a batter in terms of the type of innings that he can play. I mean, I'm just looking at his first class record. He averages 22. With the bat, and that's probably you probably look at that and think he's got the talent to maybe average a little bit more than that. I would say that he probably would want to end his career with an average slightly better than 22 with the bat, if I'm reading that right. So yeah, I would say 21.8 he averages, 3,800 runs. So I think that he's into his 30s now, isn't it? I think he's got a first class 100, and he should be pushing 25 to try and get that average up above 25, I would think, before he times he hangs up, because he has got the shots and the capability, and I think he's added some maturity to his game.
Yeah, and he's scored valuable runs down the order for Somerset time after time after time. I mean, the lower order bailing out the top order is not a new phenomenon in Somerset cricket.
It's not, no.
And Craig Overton has played his part in that, very, very, very well. And I think his average is probably a reflection, as much of anything, of where he bats in the order. If you're coming in number 8, which he is, very often, your task is to score quick runs at the end. Or it's there's been a batting collapse and you've got to try and shore it up on a difficult pitch. So it's hard to choose between the two twins now in terms of batting capability. A couple of years ago, I would have said that Jamie was the better batsman, but I think Craig he had a good season last year with the bat. And you said when I spoke to him at the end that he feels he's in really good form at the moment with the bat. And I don't think there's much to choose between them there.
You could just tell he was itching to get at Simon Harmer, and that winning shot was almost a sort of it was almost like that element of relief. I can go down. I can finally come down and smack him now. I've been sort of waiting to do that for about the last 3 hours of batting. So it was just a great moment when he finally got his opportunity to dance down and hit Harmer for 6 and finish it off lovely.
And you probably didn't hear my commentary, but I said this is Taunton's VE Day, victory over Essex Day.
Oh, Well, we've enjoyed a few of those, haven't we? The one up at Edgbaston in 2023. Was that July the 16th? Somewhere around that. When they used to play finals actually in summer and it's not freezing cold. Right, let's roll back to the start of day one. I think when we all either A, arrived at the ground, or B, had a look on social media at the colour of the pitch, we were all a little bit surprised. Probably not you, Ben, who'd been kind of maybe keeping an eye on it throughout the week as it was being prepared by Nick Pepper and his team. But credit to them for trying something different to try and get a bit of pace and bounce in the pitch that will last sort of 4 days if you can, 3.5, 3 if you must. Drew a bit of criticism on social media, notably from Gloucestershire, who I took great delight in reminding that they had a game abandoned last year against Northamptonshire because the pitch was too dangerous to play on. So back in your Division 2 box, Gloucestershire, thank you. We'll have no more slapbacks from you regarding the state of our services. But after the slightly underwhelming, to put it politely, surface that we played Worcester on, this one again was a very good competitive wicket, which you could score runs on if you stayed in and applied yourself. Also had a bit in it for the seamers and the spinners and produced a championship game, which finished on the 4th day. Can't ask for more.
No. I mean, it's clear that in early season, it is very, very difficult using the Taunton pitches to get something that is about right. And I think that they did get that about right, but that was the extreme that they had to go to get that balance right, because the pitches, as we know, they don't really get worse, they get better. So if you start at day 4, you kind of like start in reverse almost, as to say, well, what do you want the pitch like to look like on day 4? And then go, what level of greenness or dryness do you have on it on day 1 to sort of get that effect to come into fruition? So it was clear that they needed to produce a pitch that was going to give one side or the other a chance to win this game. And it meant that they needed to ensure that there was enough in it on day 4, and that meant that it needed to be green, leave a little bit of live grass on it, and that was the result. I mean, say you can look at things on social media, and a lot of people did have their comments, which is fair enough, but generally you could probably play on the outfield at Taunton and it would still be a pretty good deck. So I think that in our circumstances, our square, and using our what we've got available to us at our home ground, I thought it was Nick Pepper and his team did a wonderful job, and kept everyone interested. It was certainly not a minefield by any stretch of imagination. The ECB wouldn't even think about docking that. It doesn't fit any of their criteria for marking down on a pitch. There was no excessive spin and no uneven bounce. It was.
They'll find a way, Ben. They'll invent something. They'll find a way to do it. I mean, what I thought as well, with a lot of live grass being on there, it was possibly not as abrasive, and it kept the ball in a sort of a better condition, so that it was able to give you orthodox swing for longer. Because almost right until they took the new ball, it was still moving. A lot of it was after the seam as well, and after it sort of swinging after it had passed the bat. And poor old James Rue had a hell of an afternoon, particularly off Miguel Pretorius, who was certainly making it go around corners. Gibbo, have you ever seen a pitch at Taunton that green in recent years?
Yes, the one that comes to mind was that was against Middlesex, when Chris Rogers was the captain, and if you remember, Ben, I think they changed the pitch within about
because
Roland 2 hours of the start.
That's right.
Roland Jones, Finn, and Murtagh were injured, weren't they?
Yeah,
they were right.
That was right.
Essex Middlesex chased down 300 in the 4th innings to win. On a pitch that looked as green as grass and got better and better and better as the game went on.
Yeah.
But
That's right. They had their cricket equipment on it, didn't I think they were all warming up and they had all their cricket bags
That's right.
on it. Yeah. Yeah, I
2016 cost us the county championship.
I just remember John Simpson whacking both Overtons further and further and further at the end.
I couldn't believe it when Rogers declared, because we'd made the game safe. And then he declared and set them, I can't remember now, 309 in 50 overs, something like that. And they chased it down. And that cost us the county championship because Middlesex won it that year after that stitch up with Yorkshire. But anyway, I thought it was a very good pitch, a very, very good pitch, which produced a very, very good game of cricket. And all credit to Nick Pepper and his team for doing so. There was something in it for everyone, and the batsmen could play their shots. It wasn't dead slow or anything like that. We saw some nice stroke play. So yeah, very, very good pitch.
I think it was Pete Trigo. I was chatting to him a couple of years ago now, and he was saying pitches at Taunton, if they're green, they'll generally sort of do a bit for maybe the first session, and then it kind of dries out and flattens out. But then that's pitches that aren't quite as green as the one that we had. So it kind of makes sense that you would sort of take that to the nth degree to not end up with a Worcestershire style pitch. I mean, I'm sure there's a regulation about how much the maximum amount of length of a blade of grass you're allowed to leave on it, or maybe not. I don't know, but it was certainly a calculated gamble to make it that green, and it certainly paid off. I mean, it didn't stay like that for most of the day. It was quite a warm day on Friday, and I was kind of sat rewinding the stream sort of back to the start and looking at it in the afternoon just to see how it had gone appreciably sort of a lighter shade of green, and it was
just as well we won the toss though.
Yeah, I mean, did you see Will's reaction after the toss, Ben? Were you looking down at the square at the strip? I think Will was down there filming the toss, obviously for the content, and he was sort of, and you just saw him giving this kind of celebratory fist bump. So we kind of knew before any messages had come up that we'd won the toss and were bumped. So but we needed a bit of luck, and we've had some, and Ben, we were talking just before Gibbo came on about the importance of this game in terms of Somerset season, but now they have a week off. And it is infinitely better to be coming into a week off after having won and feeling good about yourselves rather than sitting stewing after another defeat, wondering where the hell you're going to get that first win from and what you've got to do it. Because winning's a habit. And once you get into it, closing games out, you almost do it without thinking. I'm sure when we've all played, when you're playing well, you don't think about it. And for me, that's what form is, just playing without thinking. And succeeded, not being brain dead, which we may come on to a bit later with a few culprits. But when you're just in that zone, and I think that's kind of hopefully where we are now. Because we will, of course. Sorry, Ben, you go on.
So I just think it gives, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it gives, you've got that win under the belt. You're going to get Matt Henry for the next game. It gives you that kind of step-by-step thing into...
And you spoiled... I was going to come on to Matt Henry in a minute. I was a big segue. Never mind.
But it does give you that kind of, I guess, route to how things can improve. And I think that by going into the next game with a Matt Henry, all of a sudden, I think that confidence is going to start flowing through. And I just think that I think when you look back, it's going to be worth more than because one of the elements here is that they're not getting any batting points. They've won the game, yes, but they got no batting points. So if they'd lost that game, they'd end up with 3 points. So
yeah, I was thinking about that. What did we get against Worcester for the draw? That would have been 16 points.
16, yeah.
And then we got 19 for a win. So I mean, although winning's great, and obviously you want to pick up the winning points, it does seem slightly incongruous that a difference when you're talking about you could potentially lose with 0 and win with 24 to then
blame the ECB. It's the ECB.
Well, I do blame the ECB.
Yeah, the ECB are trying to encourage boring county cricket. And that's what, there should be a much wider margin between points for a draw and points for a win. It should be incentivizing attacking cricket, and they're not. They're just incentivizing sides to bat on and on and on and on flat pitches.
I mean, unless there's some kind of coefficient with regards to amount of overs lost or things like that. If you have 2 days and you really try and force a result, then is it fair to get a low amount of points for a draw? Whereas if it's a 4-day game and you prepared an absolute road with no intention of going for a result, then you should potentially get a lower amount of points for draw. But it's very difficult.
Well, the other thing is this: not getting a batting point, so you get 250 runs. I mean, that's ridiculous. In the old days, it was 150. I think 200 would be, a sensible compromise. But it's the whole thing is, the ECB just doesn't like 4-day county championship cricket, except as a preparation for playing cricket for England, which 95% of the cricketers in the county championship will never do. And it's disrespectful, I've said this so many times, to the thousands and thousands of people who really love county cricket and want to see exciting county cricket, enterprising county cricket, where counties are trying to beat each other rather than just stack up bonus points and 8 points for a draw.
It did go down to 5 points for a while, didn't it?
5, yeah.
It did, and then they put it back up again.
That was the Silverwood bat long grind them down theory, wasn't it? That's when it went back up to 8 from 5. But I think it's so difficult. It's so difficult to assign the value to bonus points, because 450 in 110 overs versus 250 in 110 overs. Although it sounds, nominally very simple, we're talking about bringing services back into the equation. You get 250 on one pitch, it could be the greatest a side has ever played. When vice versa, if you get 450 on a road in 100 overs, it could be the easiest.
We just said what a good pitch. What a good pitch that was for this game. Yeah, it was only in the 4th innings that anyone got over 300 on it. You were never going to get 450 on that pitch. And yet it made for a really good game of cricket. Whereas the ECB would say, "Oh no, you should be, it should be 500 plays, 450, and ending in a draw, call off at 10 to 5 on the 4th afternoon, which is just tedious."
It's difficult in 4-day cricket to almost assign bonus points based on winning. It's they do it in the Women's Metrobank Cup, don't they? It's if you chase your opponent's score down in 80% of your available overs, you get a bonus point.
I just increase the difference to 12. So it's either 4 and 16 or 8 and 20. And that would do it. And then that would incentivize attacking cricket, which is what people want to see. And it's not just about producing players for England. It's about, a very important form of entertainment in its own right, which hundreds of thousands, millions of people across the country really enjoy and value.
Or just do away with bonus points altogether. What purpose do they serve?
Well,
the only thing I think they serve is kind of a divisor, like
with
goal difference. That's the only thing I
think they serve. It's a game within a game, though. I mean, a batting side particularly can they score the last 50 that they need for an extra batting point in 6 overs or whatever it is? It just adds to the excitement, more with batting points than bowling points.
But is it just is it a sideshow? I know you get what you're saying about adding to the game, but is it worth it? Is it a sideshow? It's like saying, if Arsenal get another corner, they get something. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like I mean, they kind of they have it in rugby. It's 4 tries or losing within 7, or it used to be like that. Football obviously doesn't have anything, and then cricket has its own weird and wonderful ways for all the different formats. But I mean, in rugby, it's kind of to incentivize you to keep going, even if you're getting stuffed. But in cricket, I'm struggling to see what purpose they serve. I get the feeling we could talk about this for hours on end, and it's a discussion for another time.
I say that, go on, yeah.
Well, I was just saying, let's just wrap up with Essex then. I mean, the only other thing to talk about is I didn't see much of it over the weekend, but I was kind of trying to keep my eye on it as best I could. And for me, really, the periods that it looks like the game was won was the partnerships between Lewis Gregory and James Reed and Craig Overton, and that incredible spell where we managed to send Essex or collapse Essex from, what were they, 3 for 246 to 259 all out, with Jordan Cox retiring on that third afternoon.
If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't have won. You know, if it wasn't for the injury to Jordan Cox and then that extraordinary collapse thereafter, and well bowled Mickey Pretorius. I mean, he really did bowl. You know, it was a fantastic spell. I think he took.
Have you upgraded him from journeyman yet, Gibbo?
No, I still think he's a good, honest county cricketer.
He is.
He runs in a bank, and a nice bloke as well, and he's a natural batsman. But that was I think he took 3 for 7 in 3 overs, something like that. And you know, the wickets weren't given away. But if they'd got another 30, as James Rue said to me at the end, if the lead was 350, we'd never have chased it down. So that passage of play was absolutely crucial. And you know, I feel really sorry for Jordan Cox. But that's where the luck went against Essex, because if he hadn't done his side in trying to smash Jack Leach through the offside to reach his 100, I think he would have gone on to score a good few more, because he was batting beautifully, and he's a good player, is Jordan Cox. So the unsung heroes of that win are Mickey Pretorius, Jack Leach, and Lady Luck.
I think Cox play. You know, I think he's definitely, you know, he looked an international player in that match. You know, he played brilliantly well, and he was very, very confident in his stroke play. And I think I you know, don't want to criticize Somerset, but I don't think let's make any bones of it that Somerset was second best for a lot of that game. Really, I think that it was one of those elements that you know, we shouldn't forget. We shouldn't forget that you know, the pitch and the toss maybe accounted for that, and it wasn't one where we'd have any issues. But Somerset will need to improve, you know, because through circumstance they got themselves back in the game, and you know, when the door was ajar, fabulous performance to get the win. But I think that was, you know, up until day 3, you know, that was a fairly average batting performance. The first innings in particular was average, and actually I don't think they bowled that well on day 1. You know, so there are lots of things that they still want to work on.
Not least the opening partnership.
Well, I was just coming to that. So yeah, Sean Dixon obviously busted his knuckle up at the Oval. The Oval? Yes, the Oval last time round. So Andy Umeed on the back of a sparkling run of form before the second 11K comes in. I'm not going to say there was an atmosphere in the press box when Umeed was shaping up to face his first ball, but there was certainly an eerie silence as we were waiting just to see if he was going to do something reckless as he did up at Lancashire towards the end of the season. But yes, batted very nicely and then played a horrendous slog sweep, Gibbo. And what was it Shane Berger said to you? They were asking him about his processes and his thinking behind the shot.
I know, yeah.
I mean,
I asked him specifically about that one shot, and he said batsmen have got to take responsibility and so on. But you know, I don't know. He's a fine striker of a cricket ball, is Andy.
He absolutely is,
and a lovely bloke. But I just don't see him as a long-term option for opening the batting for Somerset in Division 1 of the County Championship. I just don't think that's his plan.
I mean, not playing shots like that. I mean, it's I mean, the second innings was a little bit more. I know he got a duck, and you'd say
it was pretty limp, honestly.
it was, yeah, but it was not as bad.
No.
But we had Stephen Chalk on a few weeks ago, and obviously his Hell of a Life, the story of Brian Close won which award did it win? It was Cricket Book of the Year. I mean, there's several different ones, isn't there?
Yeah,
Wisdom Cricket Book. So congratulations, Stephen, for that one. But I'm just wondering what Closey would have said to Andy Umeed if he'd put him wandered back in, having played that shot. And this is a serious point now. Sometimes, instead of sitting there and going, what was your process there, Andy? What were you thinking? What was your intention? Sometimes do you just need a good old-fashioned bollocking? And then it kind of, you sort of think, oh, shit, oh, Christ, what's going on here? Oh, bloody hell, I don't like this. And then maybe you don't do it again. I don't know. Do you get more, do you get it better with a carrot or the stick? I mean, sometimes you need both. I mean, there are all sorts of different characters in a dressing room. And, some need an arm around the shoulder and some need a kick at the arse.
Ask Ben, who should open the innings against Sussex?
So I genuinely think now that that last innings from Archie was a player who probably isn't quite in the right headspace, and I think that would be my cue to go right. It's not beneficial for him at this point for him to, that attempted pull was someone who wasn't quite thinking straight, and it happens. He's a young player. He's done a really good job, and it's not an easy job that he's trying to do. But I think that he potentially needs now to just go into the twos for a couple of weeks, score some runs, and then he'll be back up fine. He's certainly got a big long-term future, and I do think that he's an opener, so I don't think this is he needs to be axed and some sort of dramatic, but I equally think that shot.
Come on, you're like Andy Hurry. You haven't answered the question yet.
Well, say learnings, Ben.
So he's got a few learnings to take, but no, I would say Umeed. You can't bring in Umeed for one game and then get rid of him. So I think Umeed's in, and I probably would pick Lewis Goldsworthy.
I'll just say about Vaughan is last season when he came in at the start in the One Day Cup and in how many Champo games did he play? It was Durham, Surrey, played all 4, didn't he, in September? Is that right? Or did he just play 3?
Where he got 60 odd and batted really well.
Yeah, so that kind of start to his championship career, taking wickets, bowling really well against Durham, that incredible win against Surrey, and then the side going off the finals. I know he didn't play, but he was there with the rest of the guys, had a good time. Then another Champo game, and then a One Day Cup final. All of that at the start to his career it's all adrenaline, and he's just caught up in it. He thinks this is brilliant. Oh, this is great. I'm scoring runs. I'm taking wickets. This is fantastic. Now, this month, although it's slightly less cricket because there hasn't been all the one day stuff and finals and travelling, he's not been scoring runs, and he's bowled a lot of overs, pulling out taking. This is kind of, although it's the same amount of cricket, that adrenaline probably isn't there, and it's going to be a lot more tiring. So I think this is a big week for him, just to maybe recharge the batteries, work out what's gone wrong, maybe not over net. Because the shots he's playing aren't.
I tell you what's gone wrong.
They're not. He's not.
What's
he's
gone
not,
wrong is he can't play the pull
stump.
shot.
I know,
four
but
times in the last 6 or 7 innings, he's been out with a pull shot. He should just cut it out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not like he's getting done outside the off stump. He's not quite getting there.
He was unlucky in the second innings against Surrey. He played a nice leg glance, and Ben Blooming Folks, covered about 15 yards to take the catch. I wouldn't drop it. I'd stick with Archie Vaughan. I think he's got the technique and the temperament to open the innings. We need at least one professional, opening batsman. And who goes in with him? I think if it was me, I'd ask Will Smead, I think, to go in with him and just you can't do any worse than the others who've been up there. I mean, the record opening partnerships in recent seasons is just
Not been good. Yeah. I mean, I've already chatted to Vaughan, well, I think the only time I've spoken to him was in Mambo's after the do last year when he was moaning about the music being a bit crap and looking a bit miserable before we went home. I don't know if he was miserable because he was chatting to me or not, but but having seen him in interviews and obviously with the pedigree that he's got, having been around cricket at a seriously good level his entire life, I think he's just a little bit whacked. And he could do with a good week off, get a few days in the sun. You got a spare room there, Gibbo? Could you have him there and out in Portugal for a few days? But just recharge the batteries as best you can.
If there was someone beating on the door to open the batting, someone from the second 11 who really deserves a chance, you can. But there isn't. Who are you going to put in to open the innings who's more likely to score runs than Archie Vaughan just at the moment? Lewis Goldsworthy, very good little cricketer, but he's been tried as an opener and it didn't work out. He never looked like an opener.
He didn't have a really long run though, did he?
No, he didn't because he didn't score any runs.
Did he open in the twos? The twos got played up at Warwickshire, aren't they? I don't think he opened. I think it was Josh Thomas and.
There you are. There's one. Josh Thomas is what might be worth a go, rather than Will Smeed. That's Josh Thomas and Archie Vaughan. I think that's what I'm going for.
Goldsworthy's been batting 3. Will Smeed's been coming in. What's that?
5 or 6.
Five. Yeah.
I mean, if Josh Thomas is opening, you're obviously saying that there's some progression plan there.
Well, he can't do any worse. You might as well put the pressure back on the bowlers.
But does it not say if Will Smeed was being groomed as a potential first 11 opener in red ball cricket, would he not be opening in second team cricket at the moment to sort of, give it a go? I just feel like if that tells you where their heads are at, that he's batting at 5 and 6 for the twos. He's obviously come back from injury, so he might just be doing that for the time being. I don't know, but I just feel like if he was opening for the twos, he'd be giving himself the best shot of opening for the ones.
Yeah, I agree. He'd be left field, Will Smeed, but he is a very, very talented cricketer. And we can't do much worse than we've done so far.
Was he opening back when he was sort of 16, 17 in the twos? So he put on a
with Trez, didn't he?
Didn't they put on 200 or so? He got 100 back with Trez for a bit.
Yeah.
I know it's a long time ago now, but
long time ago. I know that he's he scored a massive double 100 for the Somerset 18s a long time ago, and I think that was towards the top of the order. But I just would imagine that whoever they're looking at opening for the first team, they should be playing an opening for the second team at the moment. Would make logical sense that if Goldsworthy, that applies to Goldsworthy as well. If Goldsworthy is looked at as the next cab off the rank in terms of openers, if they've got that sort of pecking order, then he should have opened in this game. Why is he not opening? So I don't know.
Well, Josh Thomas and Archie Vaughan would be my opening partnership for Sussex.
Right hand, left hand. Fair enough. Well, we can chat about that next week.
Exactly. And that is a very important element.
It is.
It does.
We will of course have. We will of course have Matt Henry, who will be available as spoiled by Ben earlier in the episode. Finally, he's arriving. He's going to be here for Sussex next Friday at Taunton. When is he actually getting here, Ben, so we can come and pester him for autographs and selfies?
I'm not too sure actually. I expect he'll be in. They tend these days to not arrive until they're absolutely needed, just through flights and all that sort of stuff. So my hunch is he'll be around next week, but I don't know.
Excellent news. He's finally recovered from that injury, which has, he's been definitely missed. Right, we gone on for quite a while now. Not only did Somerset men record their first victory of the season, but Somerset women bounced back after a loss to Lancashire last Sunday, recording 2 wins, beating Essex at the Vale, and then a tricky trip up to Chester Street, beating Durham by 4 wickets under Duckworth Lewis. Ben, I gather you had a few technical issues with the game at Taunton Vale, and can we name and give plaudits to whoever was operating the roaming camera throughout the whole of the live stream and to follow the ball around for 50 overs?
Yeah, it was always going to be a challenge taking our streaming setup out to Taunton Vale, but thought we'd nailed it, and then some network demons hit us on the Wednesday morning, so we ended up having to sacrifice the end-on cameras and using them only for analysis purposes. So it was Alex and Archie, who are our 2 new camera operators for the season, who I think it's their like second white ball game. So they did a great job at giving us something. But yeah, it's certainly it's a difficult challenge going to outgrounds and doing this sort of stuff. It was a good day in the end.
It was good numbers on the stream as well. I think because it was the only game on the entire planet either being televised or live streamed at the time. So I couldn't quite believe it when I sort of turned it on, and at the corner of my eyes, so it was about 9,500 to start with, and so many people asking what is best score, who will win, how many runs first 10 overs. So the old Somerset spanners were having a good job blocking all those. But it's a good start for Somerset. They got Essex. Reduce Essex to 3 for 2. Laura Jackson, Ellie Anderson doing the early business with the ball before Heather Knight mopped up the tail with 3 for 7. Former Western Storm player Amara Carr top scoring with 67. And then Somerset securing the bonus point. As we mentioned before, chasing that target down in just 35.5 overs. Charlie Dean was unbeaten on 45. Alex Griffiths is also not out for 8 and earlier. Heather Knight made 45. And then Sophie Love made 24. One of the things I did like about the side on angle was you saw the spinners, because it is quite a spin heavy attack in that women's team with the likes of Dean, Amanda J. Wellington, and obviously Knight. It was lovely just side on, just watching the variations and the amount of loop that Amanda J. Wellington gets by on her leg spin. It almost kind of defies physics now. The way she just sort of gets it out and then just gets it down again. I mean, she's been not just the Surrey game where she got that, was it 31 off 10 balls or whatever it was, to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But she's been a solid performer through the whole of the campaign, really.
She has, yeah. She's she's a great player. Like you said, she gives the ball a fair bit of air. So good player. She's settled in really nicely. She's got if anyone's interested, she's got a YouTube channel called I think it's like Keeping Up with Wello.
Secret Life of Wello. It is.
Yeah,
I stumbled on it the other day, and I was like, "My God, has she actually played cricket, or does she just literally make YouTube videos?" Because she's virtually documenting her whole life in Taunton. So it's kind of a resurrection of Behind the Wyvern with Amanda J. Wellington replacing Ollie Sale with the camera. So yeah, do take a look at it. It's really really good stuff behind the scenes of Somerset's women's first year in Tier 1. And then, of course, long trip up to Durham, but always worth it when you come back with the points, as they did on Sunday. Bex Odgers coming in for Heather Knight, making 60 on debut. Fran Wilson also made 60 anchoring that run chase. And the aforementioned Amanda Jade Wellington hitting another run, beating 31 to secure victory. I'll try and find the best of the listeners' questions because we're about an hour now. And was that Claire asking you when you're going to be ready for your tea, Gibbo?
No, we're going out for supper shortly.
Okay, well, give us a shout when you need to make a move. Right. All right, my mate Trev, who made me miss my tube stop because I was chatting to him drunk after the Middlesex game where it Laws last year when I met him. Essex match similar to the Warwickshire match last year. That's when we chased 400 odd and Abel got that magnificent unbeaten 152. in that we were second best until the last innings. Is this some strategy to prepare pitches that seem to get better?
Well, that's been a characteristic of Somerset, of Taunton pitches for, I don't know, last 10 years, I think.
I think we
And
need to
why
put
it
some
should be, I
life in
don't
them
know, and
somewhere,
whether
don't
it's-
we?
Yeah, whether it's intentional or not, but I mean that's the way it's been.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally the way is to bat first, get your runs, and
Since Hyderabad, I mean Hyderabad was different.
whether
But
that's coming
when
back
did
or not.
Hyderabad finished?
2019, wasn't it?
2019, yeah.
Brian Tender-Scarter put paid to that, didn't he, with his phone call to. He probably still had the trophy and a bottle of champagne in his hand when he rung him up to moan about
But
the pitch.
in 2019, we didn't win the number of games at Taunton with through spin that we had done in the previous. That was a one-off, that pitch, because the weather forecast was so dreadful that Simon Lee had to produce a pitch on which Somerset could win the game in about 5 sessions, which is just about all we had. Hyderabad really was sort of 2015, 16, 17 up to 18, where when we had Don Bess and Jack Leach, and they really did turn those pitches, and that, it was great cricket, but
I think that it was still in those summers. A lot of those pitches were still towards the middle and back end of the year. I don't recall a Hyderabad type pitch being produced in April.
No,
absolutely.
I
think that if you go back to some of those early season games, or sort of 17, 18, 16, I think they've not I think it was the emergence of Don Bess, actually. He came in the back end of 16, didn't he? And that was when they really started to play around with it, because they knew that with Leach and Bess they had a competitive advantage over other teams. It wasn't until the emergence of Don Bess when they really sort of thought that, and Jack Leach was still improving at that time as well. So I think definitely would be very, very difficult to do that in April and May, no matter how hard you tried.
I think as well, if the pitch has got to do something at some stage to produce a result, and if you can't get it to do something in the last innings, well, then you've got to get it to do something in the first innings. Yeah. And whether you lose the toss and end up batting last on a wearing pitch chasing, or you lose the toss and you end up batting on a green one on the first morning, it's bad luck either way, and the toss is still playing a part.
Yeah.
Not a massive part, because Essex could still have quite feasibly won that game. So I mean, that as well is another thing to look at going into the fourth day, about what a good pitch it was, because both, I know the WinViz had what was it, about at Essex 75, Somerset 25, around about that. So
well, I think
wicket.
With I presume, assuming Ollie Robinson's going to be bowling for Sussex, I think a spinning pitch would be better than a seaming pitch for the game against Sussex, because he's a good bowler on a pitch that is doing a bit. So,
I'll tell you who else is a good bowler on wickets that are doing a bit: Craig Overton, Matt Henry, Josh Davey, Amigo Pretorius, and Lewis Gregory. Do you just say our seamers are better than your seamers? Off you go, lads.
Well, they haven't got Sean Hunt, who bowled really, really well at Hove, their left arm seamer, because he's injured. So yeah, it might not be a bad bet. And we do actually now have a well balanced attack, with Matt Henry, with pace, and then 3 good seamers and a world-class spinner and backup spinner. It's the batting that's more of a problem.
Twas ever thus, Gibbo. Twas ever thus.
Well, yeah, but I just want to say one thing, because I'm going to go into it. But I thought Tom Abel in the second innings batted really well against Essex, and I've been worried about Tom Abel because he's looked out of sorts and hasn't got any runs. I mean, he got 96 down at Hove, but since then he hasn't got anything. But I thought he batted really, really well. and was unlucky to get out when he did. And I think he could be a big factor. If we could just find an opening partnership that could put 30, 40 or 50 runs on the board and sort of get the thing off to a good start to give a bit of a platform for Lammerby and Abel and Banton, so that they're not coming in looking down rather than looking up. If you look at Somerset man for man, especially with Matt Henry, they're as good a side as there is in the country. But this season, apart from as Ben was saying, the last 4 sessions against Essex, we just haven't performed. We haven't performed to our potential, and that's what we got to do.
Well, speaking of openers, Alex Simpson has put in probably the best question of the week. Given Reeves our only batter to average 40, why is there a constant desire to move into open and potentially damage our one consistent batting talent? I think it's because he just looks like the most obvious opener. When we take away, if he wasn't keeping wicket, that would be the obvious place for him to bat with his technique and his temperament.
Well, you've heard me say this umpteen times that when Thomas Roux comes into the side, he should keep wicket.
Yeah.
James should open the innings.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd keep him in the middle order personally.
Yeah,
but that's it's whether you fix a problem. Are we fixing a problem or putting the best people in the right places? That's the balance that they'll have to come up with, because this opener position isn't fixing itself. There's no I don't think there's any real you look at Archie Vaughan as a potential long term bet, but I don't know. They're no further ahead of finding a solution, are they, after trying for.
But where's James going to get into the England side? He's not going to get in the middle order, is he? With Harry Brook and Jacob Bethel and Ben Stokes coming back into the side. The opportunity is opening the innings, and I think he needs to establish his credentials as opening batsman, because he's got the technique for it and the temperament.
Yeah, I mean, there's an old trick in business where if you have something, if you're pitching an idea, you write down. Everybody tells you reasons why it might go wrong, and then you say, well, if I can eliminate all these reasons, then it will succeed. And kind of applying that to James Roux opening the batting, I don't see any reasons why potentially he couldn't succeed opening the batting. Okay, it is more difficult because the bowlers are fresh and the ball's moving around, but he's got all the tools to be able to overcome that. Whether he scores as many runs as he does down at 6 is another question. Probably not. But will it be of a net benefit to the team for him to open the batting? On balance, I probably think it would be.
But more to the point, it'll be to his net benefit. He's not going to get in as a wicketkeeper batsman. That's Jamie Smith's. That's sewn up for seasons ahead. And I think, as I've just said, I just think he's got the temperament and the technique to open the batting, and that's what England really need. Just like it's what Somerset really need, is a really top class opening batsman, and he's the man.
We reckon so. And just one last question. I'm just going to pick this one out. Ben, can you remember what the wind viz was when Banton got out on Sunday evening?
Good question. Yeah, probably looking single figures, I'd imagine. I think I'd stopped looking at it at that point.
I'd given it up.
Yeah.
It's certainly better for white ball cricket because there are less variables in white ball cricket. It's mainly a tool for white ball cricket, but it is semi good fun in red ball cricket too. But white ball cricket is fairly accurate.
I think it was Trigo said you've always got to keep that 1% in, though. Always got to keep that 1% in for whether it's a side winning or the draw. That's the only complaint I have about it. I think we are done for the week. We have got, well, Somerset men don't play again now till they take on Sussex in the Championship, but the women are going to be very busy. They are playing Warwickshire tomorrow in the Women's Metrobank One Day Cup. There will be cricket on Sunday at the Cooper Associates County Ground when they take on Surrey, looking to keep their momentum going following that famous victory over at Beckenham. And then on Tuesday, they are home to Hampshire. Are those fixtures right, Ben? Because there were a couple. I'm reading them off my my calendar, my actual pre-printed ones on the calendar. Spot on. I know a couple have changed. So if you have got one of the excellent Somerset calendars, do just quickly double check the women's fixtures before you set off for your day out. So best of luck to Sophie Luff and the team, looking to build on their excellent start to the season. Lewis Gregory and the boys, enjoy your week off, but don't get too drunk and get yourself in a bit of a state for Sussex next week, because we are all very much looking forward to that one. Do we have any other business, Ben? I gather something ends at midnight tonight. Early bird T20 prices. Do you want to get a quick pitch in for that before we go?
Yeah, midnight tomorrow.
Midnight tomorrow, extra day.
Early bird prices end. So yeah, if you want to save a couple of quid on your T20 tickets, grab them before tomorrow midnight. Surrey's basically sold out, so yeah, hoping to hopefully get some full crowds for the rest.
Good stuff. Any other gossip from Taunton that you're able to make us privy to before we go?
I don't think so. No, only boring marketing stuff now I get involved with, so I don't keep my ear to the ground as close as I used to.
Well, feel free to use us as a promotional vessel should you ever wish, Ben. And if there's nothing more, we'll leave it at that. Gibbo, go and enjoy your supper after your incredibly arduous and stressful day. I think that's it. Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Chet.
Cheers, Ben. Ta-ra.